When I bought my cabin in the remote mountains of northern Colorado, I wasn't looking for trouble. I was looking for silence. I was looking for escape. The realtor had shown me the A-frame nestled among tall pines with a peaceful stream winding beside it. A wooden bridge arched gracefully over the water, quaint, sturdy, and seemingly unremarkable. She said nothing about ownership or right-of-way. She just called it the access point. I didn't ask questions. I just saw peace. The cabin became my weekend haven from city life. I worked in tech, deadlines, screen time, constant emails. But at the cabin, it was firewood, fresh air, and the smell of pine. For 2 years, it was perfect, until the orange cones appeared. It started on a Friday evening. I arrived late, headlights cutting through mist, only to find the bridge blocked with bright orange cones and a metal gate padlocked shut. I thought it was construction. I got out of my truck, flashlight in hand, and followed the chain to a sign, zip-tied to the gate. Access closed until further notice, Pine Hollow HOA. I stood there, stunned. HOA? My cabin was technically outside the HOA boundaries. I had made sure of that. But the access road, that was something else. I hadn't paid attention to who managed it. I turned around, drove 5 miles back into patchy cell coverage, and started making calls. Monday morning, I finally got through to the HOA president, Karen Winthrop. She had the voice of someone who drank her coffee with smugness and skim milk. "Oh yes," she said cheerfully. "We had to close that bridge. Safety concerns." "Safety?" I asked. "I drove over it last week. It's a liability. And unfortunately that bridge is on our easement, so we decided to close it for now. Sorry." I asked if she'd notify the property owners who needed it for access. "Well," she replied, "technically your cabin isn't in the HOA, so we didn't have to. You're not a member." That's when it clicked. They didn't want to be liable for a bridge they thought they controlled. But the more she talked, the more I realized something. She wasn't sure who actually owned the bridge. And neither was I. I took a week off work and drove to the county recorder's office. I requested every document tied to my property: title deeds, survey maps, easements. What I found blew my mind. The bridge, the actual wooden structure, was listed under a separate parcel, one that was included in my property deed. It had been transferred decades ago when a lumber company split the land. Somehow, everyone had forgotten. In legal terms, I owned the bridge, not the HOA, not the county. Me. That night, I sat in my city apartment staring at the yellowed survey documents. I thought about the pine trees, the stream, the silence I'd fallen in love with. And I realized this wasn't about a bridge. This was war. I hired a property attorney named Len Peterson, a no-nonsense guy with a tie that never quite matched his shirt. Len read the documents, nodded, and said, "They messed up. Bad. If they're blocking access to your own bridge, they're trespassing. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen." He sent a cease and desist letter to the HOA within 48 hours. We demanded they remove the blockade and issue a written apology. Their response? A countersuit. They claimed that the bridge, while deeded to me, had historically been maintained by the HOA, giving them a right to manage its access. They brought up a dozen community meetings from the past decade, none of which I'd attended or known about. It was absurd. It was also going to court. The case drew attention. Local papers started calling it the Battle of the Bridge. Some neighbors supported me. Others sided with the HOA, afraid I might one day block them from using the road. The trial started in the dead of winter. The courtroom was packed. The judge, a stern woman named Herrera, was sharp and didn't tolerate nonsense. The HOA's argument hinged on prescriptive easement, the idea that because they'd maintained and used the bridge publicly for years, they had the right to manage it. But our team pointed to the deed, the history, the fact that their maintenance was unsanctioned, undocumented, and done without my consent or even my knowledge. In the end, the law was clear. I won. Judge Herrera ruled that I had full ownership of the bridge. The HOA had no authority to block access or interfere with the bridge in any way. But then she said something else. "If Mr. Walker chooses," she stated, "he is also within his rights to restrict all HOA members from using the bridge." There was a long silence in the courtroom. Power had shifted. The HOA didn't take defeat gracefully. Suddenly I started getting petty citations from the county, noise complaints when I used a chainsaw, anonymous tips about unpermitted structures, like my woodshed, and even an attempt to declare the bridge a historical structure to limit my ability to modify it. I knew where it was coming from. Karen. But I also knew I had something she didn't. Leverage. So I used it. 3 months after the ruling, I installed a new electronic gate at the entrance to the bridge. Only 2 RFID key fobs were programmed, one for me and one for the county emergency services. I posted a sign. Private property, bridge access by owner only, unauthorized. Entry will be prosecuted. Karen was furious. So were a few dozen residents who had used that bridge as a shortcut to get to the other side of the valley. It turned out my bridge wasn't just for me. It was a key artery for a large part of the community. That was never my problem. Until a knock came at my door. It was the new vice president of the HOA, a younger guy named Eric. Nervous, polite, and clearly sent as the reasonable one. He offered to buy the bridge. We'll pay to maintain it, add insurance, whatever it takes. Just give us access. I considered it, but then I offered something else. A lease, I said. They could lease the bridge access for 10 years, pay annual maintenance, and add me as a non-voting member of the HOA board. Control without the meetings. Influence without the politics. It was a power move. They accepted. It's been 5 years since the lawsuit. The bridge still stands, stronger than ever. The HOA pays for its upkeep now. They never tried to block me again. The cabin is still my escape, but now it's something more. A reminder that silence is worth fighting for. And sometimes, the thing you ignore, an old wooden bridge, turns out to be the one thing that connects everything and everyone.